Good morning, everybody. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people. Today is August 4th, 2026. Yesterday, we talked about the eclipse cycles, just as the American eclipses over 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. The middle eclipse was the first vaccine in the United States. December 14th, 2020. Then we saw another eclipse cycle that was also 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. And the first eclipse was the beginning of the pandemic, December 26th, 2019. The middle eclipse was the hybrid solar eclipse, April 20th, 2023. And the end of this cycle is the upcoming eclipse over Spain, August 12th, 2026. Now, as we looked into this, I got to thinking about the upcoming lunar eclipse on August 28th. And when I started putting a timeline together of this is what I noticed. Okay, so let's look at the beginning of the pandemic. Look at the beginning of the pandemic on December 26th, 2019, an annular solar eclipse, and this was the beginning of the pandemic, the first cases, patient 0. And then we have this timeline leading to August 12th of 2026. Now, on August 28th, 2026, there's a partial lunar eclipse that is going to be 95% eclipsed. And even though it's a partial eclipse, it is going to be a blood red moon. Because it's almost 100%. So it's going to be a blood red moon. And if we go back in the same exact timeline, what really caught my attention, beyond the fact that this was the beginning of the pandemic, just as December of 2019 was the beginning of the pandemic, the first eclipse, which happened on January 16th, 2020. This was the first days of the pandemic. Now, when we go forward to the middle eclipse, the middle eclipse in the cycle is May 5th, 2023. May 5th, 2023. I don't know if that rings a bell for anybody, but May 5th, 2023 was the day they declared the pandemic was over. Do you remember that when the World Health Organization declared the pandemic on March 11th, 2020? And then it was exactly 1,150 days later, on May 5th, 2023, the World Health Organization declared that the pandemic was over. Now, the pandemic, when you consider in Daniel, it talks about the cleansing of the temple and sacrifices that will happen for 2,300 days. Actually, 2,300 evenings and mornings. Now, when you have a 2,300 evenings and mornings, okay, an evening and a morning is one day. 2,300 evenings and mornings. 2,300 evenings and mornings is 1,150 days. 1,150 evenings and 1,150 mornings. 2,300 evenings and mornings. 1,150 days. The pandemic lasted exactly 1,150 days, from March 11th, 2020 to May 5th, 2023. Now, this upcoming eclipse is connected by the same cycle as the solar eclipse by 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days from the beginning of the pandemic in December and January of 2019 to 2020, coming forward to the hybrid solar eclipse on April 20th, 2023, which was Hitler's birthday, and then May 5th, the lunar eclipse, which was the end of the pandemic. This is the cycle that is bringing us to these next two eclipses, August 12th and August 28th, just before the Feast of Trumpets on September 11th of 2026. The Feast of Trumpets on 9/11. Now, yesterday morning, the video I did yesterday was just after midnight. And I woke up the next morning and I went over to do some exercise. And I was playing tennis, practicing my serve and practicing against the boards. We got to bed late, and my son didn't want to go play tennis in the morning. So I went by myself, and I went to Columbine High School, where we're like 5 minutes from there. And I got over there, and I did my exercise, and when I was done, I walked over to the Columbine Memorial. Now, just before I went to the Columbine Memorial, I was talking about this eclipse, which was Hitler's eclipse on April 20th, 2023. And when I went to the Columbine Memorial, I was reminded that this happened on April 20th of 1999. This was an act of violence. The killers were Nazi. They were following Nazi propaganda. They were looking out over the students and asking them if they believed in God. And they were killing the people that were not denying their faith in Jesus Christ. Columbine Memorial. You remember the story of Rachel Joy Scott? Never forgotten. 12 students and 1 teacher. The Columbine Memorial. And I went there just after I was talking about the April 20, 2023 hybrid solar eclipse, which was also on Hitler's birthday. This was a very moving moment for me to go there, to remember this, to read over the plaques of the people that died and the memories of that day, the tragic events that took place, and how really, I mean, in my perspective, 1999 was like the beginning of the floodgates that began opening, and all of the tragedies that have been happening in the world, all the acts of terror, all the mass shootings, so many things that are happening in the world now. And I think that Columbine was something that really opened this all up. And the fact that it happened on Hitler's birthday, I don't think that was a coincidence at all. And I think it's something we need to understand, that there is another Antichrist that is going to be coming, right? Hitler was an Antichrist. Just as Haman was an Antichrist, just as Antiochus Epiphanes was an Antichrist. There are so many Antichrists. There are many Antichrists in the world that have come and that will come. And there is another Antichrist that is coming. And I think this hybrid eclipse on April 20th, 2023, leading us to this cycle of August 12th, 2026, connected to the lunar eclipse on May 5th, 2023, which was the declaration that the pandemic was over. So I just wanted to share these pieces of information with you. How important these two eclipses are connected to the beginning of the pandemic by 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. And so, I mean, if you consider this, we're going to see that the first eclipse that happened was the beginning of the pandemic. Yesterday, we also talked about the December 14th, 2020 eclipse, which was the first vaccine. Then we see the end of the pandemic, which also was under a lunar eclipse. So how many of these major events within the COVID timeline have all happened under a lunar and solar eclipse? Okay, this is why the Bible says there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. So when these eclipses happen, we need to be watching what else is going to be happening in the world, because this could be a major focal point, a major sign that something major is happening. There's a shift that is coming. And so August 12th, I mean, we need to keep our eyes open. We need to understand how many things have been happening in Spain. And now we have an eclipse coming over Spain. We already have all of the warnings coming up. I mean, something could be planned, or something could happen that is much worse than anything we've seen up until now, already connected to this eclipse over Spain. And then we have the lunar eclipse on August 28th, and we have everything leading up to 9/11, Feast of Trumpets, in 2026. So I just wanted to share this. I hope all of this information was a blessing to you. If there's anything you didn't understand, please let me know in the comments and I can explain it more. But we need to pay attention. There will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and on the earth, distress of nations. I pray you are blessed today. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people, the sign of his coming revealed.